Hi, this is Randal Schwartz, host of FLOSS Weekly. This week, Aaron Newcomb joins me. We're going to be talking about ways to get more women into tech, including working on open source projects. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned. FLOSS Weekly is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Securing every access point in your company doesn't have to be a challenge. LastPass unifies access and authentication to make securing your employees simple and secure. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is FLOSS Weekly with Randal Schwartz and Aaron Newcomb. Episode 563, recorded January 22nd, 2020. Apprentice Program. This episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology's Advanced Technology Center is like no other testing and research lab with more than $500 million of equipment, including solutions from key partners like VMware. And it's virtual, so you can access it 24/7. To learn more and get insights into all that it offers, go to wwt.com/twit. And by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. Yes, it's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/floss. It's time for FLOSS Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I'm your host, Randal Schwartz, Milman@to&nbsp.com, bringing you each week the movers, the shakers, the big projects, little projects, projects you may be using every day, projects you might want to download right after the show, or unusual things like we're going to talk about today. Joining me once again is my lovely and talented co-host, Aaron Newcomb. Aaron, welcome back to the show.
I don't know about talented, but, lovely, of course. I get that all the time.
Hey, we can, it's my show. I can say whatever I want about you. So let's take it as a compliment. Let's just go with that. So, and you're, it looks like you're once again in your wife's, we're seeing your wife's makerspace.
Yeah. I'm in the home office. I think next time, I was going to do it this time. I forgot. Next time I'll take a picture from behind me. So you can see what I'm seeing from this side. You mean, and then
take a picture
we'll pop that up.
Take a picture from in front of you. We're already seeing what's behind you.
Yeah. Take a picture pointing this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
That would be in front of you, not behind you.
Yeah.
And I am once again in the home office, I guess I could say, in my bedroom in Beaverton, Oregon, where it's cold and rainy, which is always sort of interesting. And at the last second, I remembered to wire up the RG45 so we don't have glitches, which is nice. So today, a rather unusual show. I say this because I know less about this than almost all the other shows I've done, which says a lot. But we're going to be talking to Tracy Lee and Moshe Milman about getting more women into tech, and also about some of the things they're doing in their projects to make available more jobs for women, and also how for you to encourage a better, I should not say more women, better gender balance. How's that? Is that a PC way to say that? Better gender balance. And I didn't have a lot of time to research this show. Normally I get up about 2 hours earlier than I did today, and I somehow managed to stub my big toe last night while I was getting up to go to the bathroom, and I slept very poorly for the last half of the night. So I slept in a little and didn't do all my normal research, but that's not usually enough anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So what have you been able to pull out of this so far, Aaron?
I don't know much about either project, I'll be honest. I did a little bit of research. I do think it's important, though. I remember when I was dropping my son off at college. He's going to Cornell University. And when I dropped my son off, one of the questions we asked was about the engineering college in general. We asked, what's the ratio, the balance between men and women students? And they were really proud. They said, we're really happy we got we're up to almost 50%. It varies year to year, but we're really excited about that. And I was really glad by that. And then all of a sudden they said, except for the software engineering, the computer science program, where it's much lower. It's down. I forget what the ratio was, but it was much lower in computer science. And then I've also read online where there's there's almost an equilibrium in terms of genders going into computer sciences programs in a lot of cases, but then the actual graduation rate is much lower because the females in the program drop out, and I don't know why that is. But so across the board, both in college and then after college getting jobs, we definitely need to focus on this because a diverse well, we'll get into why in a minute. I'll let other people talk about that, but it is important. Let's just say that.
And I'm sure our guests have many opinions about this as well, so we can definitely let them fill that all in. So, but before we bring on our guests, I do have an important message because this episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. WWT began building their Advanced Technology Center, ATC, 10 years ago and has grown exponentially. It's like no other testing and research lab. The lab contains more than $500 million in equipment from hundreds of OEMs and key partners ranging from high-tech heavyweights like VMware, Dell EMC, and Microsoft. WWT is a trusted partner who stays with you over the years. Many of their customers have been with them for over a decade because they know WWT is where they can go to get the answers they need to make sure their business runs right. Their ATC is an incubator for IT innovation and offers on-demand and schedulable labs like VMware Cloud on AWS, along with hundreds of other labs representing the newest advances in network virtualization, software-defined data center, security, digital workspace, multi-cloud architecture, and automation, and more. Learn about products before you launch. WWT's engineers use these environments to quickly spin up proofs of concept and pilots using the sandbox so customers can confidently select the best solutions. In many cases, this reduces concept time from months to weeks, which increases speed to market. They offer Lab as a Service, a dedicated lab space within the ATC. Here, customers can perform programmatic testing using the vast technology ecosystem that WWT has already built. It's virtual, so you can take full advantage of ATC's unique benefits anywhere in the world 24/7. WWT's engineers work in these labs every day, beta testing new solutions based on the latest and greatest VMware technologies, and building reference architectures and custom integrations to help their customers make decisions and see results faster, and with much less investment. WWT has launched their new digital platform encompassing the ATC ecosystem. This ecosystem creates a multiplier effect of knowledge, speed, and agility anytime, anywhere around the world for their customers. Get access to articles, case studies, hands-on labs, and other tools that make the difference in today's fast-paced world. To learn more about the ATC and get insights into their newest features, go to wwt.com/twit. WWT simplifies the complex. That's wwt.com/TWIT. WWT, delivering business and technology outcomes around the world. And we thank WWT for their sponsorship of Floss Weekly. So let's go ahead and bring on our guests. Let's start with Tracy Lee. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And where are you speaking to us from?
I am coming in from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, North Carolina, the home of ATO.
Yes, one of my favorite conferences. Mm-hmm.
I've been there 2 years in a row, so I'm almost certainly going back this year. They give me a press pass because I do Floss Weekly, so that's kind of nice. I don't have to actually be a speaker to get the free run, although it's not very expensive, I don't think. So it's kind of nice.
It's actually quite cheap. Yes, I keynoted last one, and we're going to be sponsoring, and I'll probably be speaking at the next one. So it's a really wonderful conference.
It's like $50 or $100 compared to $1,500 for OSCON, and I think it actually has more content. But I shouldn't despair. O'Reilly, they've made me a lot of money over the years. I got to be careful how I say that, but I do get to go to OSCON as a speaker as well. Not a speaker, a press as well. So that's kind of nice. They always let me do that. Okay, let's also bring on Moshe Milman. I should have asked how to pronounce your name. Is that close?
Yeah, no, pretty close.
So where are you speaking to us from, Moshe?
I'm speaking from San Mateo, California.
So, sorry, say again?
San Mateo, California, not too far from
San Mateo, right. Yeah, I'll wave in your general direction, too. So Raleigh's over here somewhere, and San Mateo's over there. So, Tracy, exactly. give us the overview. What are the problems you're trying to solve by initiating these initiatives you got?
Well, this actually started because, I'm very passionate about helping women in tech. I came into doing development as a second career after I was doing a bunch of startup related stuff. And Moshe and I, last year kind of got together, and he's really interested in helping give back to the open source community. He's done so much in, supporting open source projects. But what a great way to kind of merge two things, right? I mean, we talk about people getting into the industry, women in tech, trying to get jobs, having difficulties. But if we're able to give them opportunities and pair that with open source, then, even better, right? So it's kind of like a win-win for everybody involved. So what we've been doing is, specifically with Apple Tools, we've been allowing, talking to maintainers. Maintainers always want to help, change the ratio, mentor however they can. But I think the biggest problem with maintainers is that it's very difficult for them to find a way to actually do it. And so this gives them a very tangible way to say, hey, if I dedicate a few of my hours to helping guide a woman in tech to, add visual testing to my library, which I need anyways, paired with Apple Tools, who provides free open source licensing for these projects, then, it's basically like 3 or 4 organizations kind of coming together to help somebody. And it's just been really awesome to see the progress over the past year or so.
And putting stuff in open source also means that you can publish it to GitHub and you have a resume built up.
Yes, and that's definitely a huge thing. I mean, we've seen apprentices, immediately get jobs. We've seen apprentices build relationships like, for example, NGRX, which is a pretty large library. Being able to talk to the core maintainers and have them as mentors all of a sudden is huge for your career, right? A huge career builder. So seeing these women go from there or start speaking at conferences about, their first foray into visual testing, or become really passionate and want to explore that because of the opportunities we were able to give them, it's been awesome. And again, Apple Tools, I have to say, Moshe, we wouldn't be able to do it without you, because you've been, investing the money into actually allowing us to do this. So that's been really cool.
Well, I'm going to display my ignorance here, so pardon me for not really knowing a lot about how this doesn't work or works for women. But so first off, engineering jobs are for the most part viewed as male-dominated jobs. Second, I don't know how well women do in school working around, competing against males to graduate and things like that. Third, I imagine it's hard getting a job. Because you're competing against some biased people, competing for jobs that are being provided by biased people. And fourth, is there sometimes too much, workplace pressure that forces them out? Are there other reasons? And of those 4, which are the most important?
I think that you basically covered, almost all of the different things that happen, right? So number one is,
Yay.
yeah.
Yay. I got it. I know about this a little bit.
But, it's like, number one is there are less women who go to school for engineering, and there are less of them that graduate, which means for traditional pipelines of recruiting at job fairs where most of your engineering career starts, you have a ratio problem. So where we've been seeing the diversity come in is actually through the different boot camps, because boot camps actually have a much higher percentage of gender balance in a sense. But, if you're a woman in tech and you're doing a second career, you're going through a boot camp, you kind of don't have a lot. I mean, personally, I think you have a lot going for you, but when it comes to finding a job, then it's like, oh, you changed careers. You're a junior developer. You went to a boot camp. Okay. It's much harder for them to get jobs. So what we do is we just provide them with the first opportunity through this program, give them money to, learn on the job in a sense and build their resume. And then, then it's much easier again to go into an interview and say okay, look, I got my first job. Now I know what I'm doing.
Cool. And so I also know there's a proliferation of for conferences and other things of codes of conduct, because there has been bad behavior by us males. How do you think that spins into this, and what can we do about that?
What can we do to help code of conduct violations? Well, I think, it depends on which communities you're in. I'm heavily involved in the JavaScript community, and I feel like all the larger JavaScript conferences are so cognizant of this. They have multiple people being kind of, safe people for people to report things or say, hey, I feel uncomfortable. They tend to handle things pretty quickly. And then, if something for some reason is not handled well, then, the community typically calls people out and then, they rectify the situation immediately. So I think it's just about, I mean, if I go back to like Twitter last night, it's like, don't assume, actually Angie, who works for Apple Tools, she was like, oh, I was at a conference and somebody assumed I was somebody's wife. And, obviously don't do that. Or, don't hit on somebody at a conference. You just never know. So keep it professional.
Is that a problem that's mostly solved then, or still has a long ways to go?
I think it still has a long way to go. I mean, you can only do so much, and definitely like it's changing, but, it's like NGConf, which is an Angular conference, they had, I think, 700 something submissions, and, most of them were coming from non-underrepresented minorities, right? So you have to actually make an effort as a conference organizer to feature some gender and, underrepresented minority balance in your lineup to make sure that you're helping elevate those role models, right? Like a lot of people don't go into tech or don't feel comfortable in tech because they don't see people. I've been to a lot of conferences where I speak and, women are like, oh, I can wear a dress, like who knew that was such a big deal? But like it's a really big deal.
And Moshe, what's your relationship to Apple Tool? Looks like you're a co-founder. What is their goal? What problems is Apple Tool solving?
So we're trying to help improve testing and allow companies to test the user experience, the look and feel of applications, which was kind of like an area that was abandoned before. We're trying to apply AI to be able to see that the screens look right on all the different browsers, devices, and pretty much help companies automate testing in a way that was not possible before.
So is this a competitor, say, with something like Selenium, or are you using Selenium?
So actually, we run on top of Selenium and Cypress and all the other open source tools and add these capabilities on top of open source tools to be able to, again, check that everything looks right on different screen sizes, different devices, the entire functionality looks good, like all the stuff that's not covered by some of these tools, applying computer vision on top of it and making it feasible.
Yeah, it looks like we may have used this, or we've used some tools like this. One of the tools, you talk a lot about visual AI, being able to track what people are looking at, I guess. How would you describe that?
So it's more about like getting the screenshots from the screens while the test is running and checking these screenshots. So like you can check that the screen looks right on different devices, like iPhone 10, iPhone 11, portrait, landscape, and make sure that in each of these screen sizes, each of the device orientations, everything appears correctly to the end user. Like countless cases where you browse the internet or you go to a site, you want to buy something, just the button is not there, you can't really see the product properly on your device, and it kind of like hinders the entire experience. We're trying to help companies fix it and be able to innovate fast while not worrying about these things. Every time you make a change, we automatically make sure that everything works well, look right on all the different environments, and you can just have this peace of mind and only look at it when there is certain changes that break the page or break the experience.
Ah, I see. So you're actually tracking that, and then you can report back in an automated way, I assume, as part of the testing process. Hey, something didn't work here. Something that's actually really useful. I know we get a lot of cases since I work in the APM industry. We get a lot of cases where like an end user is trying to click on a button that's actually not doing anything, right? It's like really frustrating for people, and it's really hard to see that in your code because the code isn't doing anything, the button's not doing anything, but the user is like pulling their hair out, right? So different things like that. I mean, this is actually really valuable for those things where it's difficult for. And sorry, I'm giving your use case. I should let you talk about it, but as I see it anyway. People that are developing the code, that way they can see exactly what their end users are doing, and it provides a really good feedback loop. Is that an adequate description? Am I understanding it right?
Description.
Okay, cool. Right. and so now somehow these two worlds meet, right? So we can talk more about Applet Tools. I want to talk about that as well, but I also want to see how do these two things intersect. I know that there's applettools.com, and then there's applettools.com/open source, which is a different page. And you brought this up earlier about giving away or providing free licenses, I assume, to Applet Tools for various projects. Is that the way it works?
Yes. So one of the things we decided early on is we want to always be, like at the forefront of technology. And sometimes when you work with some of the large enterprise companies that we're working pretty much with with many of them, I mean, they're not always able to adopt the latest and greatest technologies. Some libraries they can't use because of security restrictions and other stuff. And actually, when you work with open source projects, they're always kind of like at the edge of innovation, using the coolest new technologies and can give you great feedback. So we felt that on one hand, our software runs on top of some open source tools like Selenium, like Cypress, like other tools, which are helping us get to a broader audience. So kind of like as a way to give back, I mean, we would like open source projects to be able to use our technology to help them test their stuff when they make changes, when they release. And it's just kind of like a nice way to, on one hand, give value to the community, but also for us to get feedback from these projects, which are using it in a kind of like very fast-paced environment with the latest and greatest technologies, and then be able to better serve our customers, and improve the product based on that feedback. And again, combining it with the initiative that Tracy brought up for the Apprentice Program makes it even better, because then, we also have people that can actually help contribute these additions to open source projects and start testing these open source projects with Applet Tools. I mean, they actually do the work to make it available, and then these Apprentice Program people can actually get the experience, get their hands dirty, build some, write some code, have a portfolio on GitHub that they can later show other people, and open source projects win because they get this coverage, and we just kind of like get the benefit of everything. So I think it's a great win-win situation.
Wow. So Tracy, how did this all start? I'm kind of curious. Like, how did you? It seems like I don't want to say. Well, it is. It's an unlikely pairing. Like, I'm trying to imagine in my head how you guys got together and came up with this idea, and it's all working. Like, it just seems like it's not a you got your chocolate in my peanut butter moment, right? There's got to be a lot more to it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, again, this dot as a company, we are a JavaScript consultancy, but we really believe in just giving back to the community. So any opportunities that we can provide to help women in tech is awesome. And, companies like Applet Tools have said, hey, here's, StackBlitz, for example, which is it's an online ID. This year, they're just like, oh, here's $20,000. We want to invest in open source. Do what you will with it. And it was very similar to Applet Tools, right? To just say, hey, we want to invest in open source, but, even better if we can have folks who have less opportunities do that. So, the partnerships have been really awesome. So it's not really, I wouldn't say it's an unlikely pairing, because I definitely feel like these days a lot of corporations or, small businesses that are built on open source are definitely saying, okay, we need to start giving back. Okay, how do we do it? And I think everybody, we talk about the gender ratio problem. I think everybody knows that is a problem. And, if you can kind of achieve both things, right? Like help open source, give back to open source, which you wanted to do, but also help women in tech, what a better way to do that than the program.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say it's a real double whammy in this case, as I used to say when I was a kid, in that there's two benefits, one for the open source community and then one for getting more women involved in tech. I'm just kind of curious, like if someone was to sign up, let me back up a little bit. How many people are in the program? First of all, the apprenticeship program, let's take that one. How many people are in it now? And then what's the process like for people to get involved? Do they just sign up, and is there some sort of matching? Like, oh, it looks like you have, this skill set, so you can go work on this project? Or is it just, where do you want to get involved and we'll make it happen?
Yeah, it's definitely a pairing. Initially we're just like, oh, cool, you just got out of the boot camp, you can do this project.
Right.
But, very quickly we understood that, like for Apple Tools, for example, we put them through a simple testing project, and, they need to pass the code test because we need to be able to understand how qualified they are. We pay them money. Well, through Apple Tools, we pay them money, and, we don't want them to spend, like 2 weeks on a project and, divided by however many hours, money divided by how many hours, ending up getting paid like $2 an hour, right? So we try to estimate, like, okay, based on this skill level, this is going to take you somewhere between, let's say, 8 to 40 hours, which means you're going to get paid really well per hour or still good enough for your time. That's kind of how we look at it. And, it's also depending on the different projects we have, right? So we have partnerships with tons of different organizations. We're partnering with a veterans organization, which helps veterans learn how to code. It's called Vets Who Code. We're partnering with another organization that focuses on formerly incarcerated people. And we partner with, almost all the women in tech related boot camps, and a bunch of others. So there's a really big pipeline in a sense. And, again, it just depends on, what project do they want to work on? What are they passionate about? And then we kind of do a matching from there.
So I want to continue the conversation, but before we do that, I do have an important message, because this episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. We all know how a VPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But did you know that it can take your TV watching to the next level by unlocking movies and shows that are only available in other countries? Use ExpressVPN to bring on Doctor Who or Star Trek on the UK Netflix. It's simple. Just fire up the ExpressVPN app, change your location to the UK, refresh Netflix, and that's it. ExpressVPN hides your IP address and lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries, so just think about all the Netflix libraries you can go through. Love anime? Use ExpressVPN to access Japanese Netflix and be spirited away. But it's not just Netflix. ExpressVPN works with any streaming service: Hulu, BBC iPlayer, YouTube, you name it. There are hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN to watch shows is that it's ridiculously fast. There's never any buffering or lag, and you can stream in HD, no problem. ExpressVPN is also compatible with all your devices: phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more, so you can watch what you want on the go or on the big screen wherever you are. If you visit my special link right now, expressvpn.com/floss, you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Support the show, watch what you want, and protect yourself at expressvpn.com/floss. And we appreciate ExpressVPN's support of FLOSS Weekly. So we're almost out of time. Tracy, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure is covered before we have to let you go?
No, I don't think so. We appreciate having you on, and we appreciate you guys actually caring about the initiative as well. I think the more we can talk about helping women in tech and how companies can help women in tech through, just really simple ways, right? By participating in something like the open source initiative, then life is all the better. So you can only move the needle as far as you can day after day.
Cool. And I guess you have a hard out in about 5 minutes, so I'm going to let you go. But before I do that, I have to ask the 2 questions, and then we'll keep chatting with Moshe for a few more minutes. So what's your favorite text editor?
Visual Studio Code, for sure.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been starting to use that for my my Dart and Flutter work, because it's a nice and it's fast. It's a lot faster than Android Studio and a bunch of other stuff. So
the plugins are really good as well. So I love that.
Plugins are excellent, right? So I have friends that are writing some of those plugins, so it's really convenient to do that. And your favorite scripting language?
Scripting language. I mean, I'm only a JavaScript developer. Are you talking about writing scripts?
Well, no, JavaScript is a scripting language, so that's fine. Yeah. I'll take that. Right.
All right.
Well, Tracy, it's been great having you on the show. We're going to keep chatting with Moshe for a few more minutes, but
awesome.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So that was Tracy Lee talking to us. And Aaron, you want to continue talking to Moshe?
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit more. Well, first of all, kudos to you now that we know what's going on, Moshe, with what you're doing to give back to the open source community. Definitely want to recognize you for that. But then I do want to talk a little bit more about, Applet Tools itself, who's using it, some success stories if you have them. Like, how many customers do you have at this point?
Yeah, so we have about 400 customers. Most of the large software companies, here in the Bay Area, almost all of them. And again, some I can't mention by name, but pretty much all the big software companies you can think about here are using it. Most of the large banks in the U.S. We have customers like Bank of America, Wells Fargo. Again, many others. I think initially the interesting thing when we started building Applet Tools, it's kind of like came from a problem that we had at the previous company. We were building a software which had a lot of UI, like a pretty big user interface, and it was localized to many different languages, and it was white labeled to many different kind of like sub-brands. And testing was always a huge pain, like always in the last minute we would find bugs in the UI, and we couldn't find any tool to properly automate it. We tried to compare screenshots with pixel matching and all these things, and it never really worked, and it was a big pain. And we started speaking with other companies, and everyone were kind of like sharing the same pain, but no one felt like there is a good way to address it. So we felt let's try to let's try to play with it and see if we can come up with a good solution. And my co-founder Adam, he's based out of Tel Aviv, started building it and started showing it to some friends that worked in cool startups in Tel Aviv, and they started using it, got some good feedback, and started evolving it over time. And then it got to some pretty good level that we felt happy about, and we felt that it would solve the problem that we had before. And then we decided to start like expanding it and get it to more customers. And the nice kind of like evolution that happened over the last few years is like, when we started it 5 or 6 years ago, the awareness was not really there. We spoke to a lot of customers, and they didn't think that they have this problem. When we explained them, why it's important, they actually understood and said, well, it makes sense, but they didn't really think about it as a problem they need to address. I think now almost every company, sees itself as a software company. Even when you speak to some banks, some retail companies, some pharmaceutical companies, they all understand that their ability to innovate, their ability to compete depends on how quickly they can innovate, how quickly they can build new features, how great the user experience they're going to be providing. So everyone are paying much more attention to testing, much more attention to how quickly they can release software, and it just makes everything nicer, I guess, for the ecosystem.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. We deal with that a lot in my line of work, where companies are, we call it digital transformation, where they're going from banks are a great example, right? If you look at that Capital One commercial, it's like, oh, you can open an account in 5 minutes, and it's like, well, that's great. I don't know how many bank accounts I need to open, but that's great that if I needed to, I could do it in 5 minutes. But it's this move to a digital first persona for the companies, that the application is now their first way to interact with their customers, typically, where before it was maybe an ad or a mailer or something like that. That's all changing. And so what that means is that the software now is more and more important to the financial success of the company. And so that's definitely a trend. I think we're well down the path of that trend. And I just want to clarify one thing, that Applet Tools itself is not, the products that you offer are not necessarily open source, but they're built on top of open source, which is the reason that you want to give back to the open source community, correct?
Yeah, that's true. So we integrate with many of the leading open source tools, and we help make it easier to use these tools and add capabilities that are not available within these tools. We do build some open source tools, so we're contributing to the Selenium IDE project, which is one of the kind of like a subset of the Selenium project. We have 2 developers working on that project and helping with that. We're adding some code to the Appium project, which is a leading open source project for mobile testing. So we have some people working on open source, but the product itself is not open source.
Right. I just want to make that differentiation. And I think that's fine. We talk a lot about freemium projects, where you got to pay more to get the special features. It's open source, but then you've got to pay more, and I think this is kind of a split universe, right? Where we're building our paid product on top of open source, we're giving back open source. We're developing our own open source stuff. I mean, I think it's okay to live in that dichotomy, if you will. I do want to ask about because obviously there are people on here that are running their own open source projects. A lot of them have very visual interfaces that they need to do testing on, et cetera. So I do want to let you tell us about, if I was running an open source project and I need to do some visual testing, how do I apply to get the license for Appy Tools so that I can use that platform to do testing for free?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you just put your name and email and GitHub information in the open source page, and then we just provision an account for you. You get access, and I mean, of course, we just make sure it's a valid open source project, and then we just provision an account. We give you access, and you can start using it right away. And I mean, it integrates with all the typical pipelines that you would use. So you can use stuff like GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, Jenkins, whatever CI tool you're using, and just put it as part of the pipeline. And from now on, every time you have a new build or a new change, I mean, it just covered automatically, including the look and feel. You can see changes to the UI. You can make sure that it looks good on different browsers, different screen sizes. If it's responsive, just gives you all that coverage.
Very cool. And what are some of the open source projects that have taken advantage of running Applet Tools so far to make their projects better?
So there is a handful. I mean, I think they're like ng charts, which is part of the Angular project, some of the React charts. I mean, it's basically, most of them are open source projects which are UI focused. So a lot of like UI components libraries, chart libraries, graphs, like all these types of projects. So I think we have about 10 already live, and we have about 5 more in process. I mean, these are with the Apprentice Program. With other projects, I mean, we have a bunch more. I just don't know all of them.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm looking at the sign-up page now, which is in the lower third for Moshe. It's appletools.com/open source. And I'm just looking at some of the projects there. Leaf UI. It looks like a couple of Nginx projects, I'm assuming. NGRX, NGX Bootstrap, Preact.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's related to React material. Some very cool. Oh, there's the page there. So you can see, you just go to that link, you can sign up to apply and get free licenses. And then there's some of the projects there that some of the different libraries that have actually used Applet Tools to make their product better. So very, very cool. Well, I'm just curious, what's next? Is there something else that you have in mind in terms of either Applet Tools itself for things that you're working on, or more involvement in the open source community?
So I'll cover both aspects. I mean, for Applet Tools itself, I mean, for like more involvement in the community, it's not really open source, but one of the things we're trying to move the needle on is awareness to testing and knowledge and skills around testing. We feel like there is a big gap in the community. I mean, everyone wants to be developers, and there is not enough people with the right skills around testing or with the right mindset around testing. So we're trying to help educate more people. One of the projects we started last year in 2019 was, we call it the Test Automation University.
Oh, okay.
It's basically an online university for software testing. And it's amazing. Actually, we started it in about a year ago, and we have already 35,000 people that actually took courses over there. It's all free, and kind of like as a way to get the education out there. We work with experts from the community, so it's like not just people from Applet Tools, like a lot of smart people that are experts in specific, like people that are experts in Selenium are doing courses about the Selenium open source project. People are doing courses about just general Java courses to teach people how to learn the basic programming principle that they need to build automated tests in a scalable way. So this is one big initiative that we're putting a lot of focus on, and we believe that the more people we get educated about testing, the more people will be able to use Applet Tools, and kind of like this expands our reach, our ability to scale. So that's one thing. I'll pause for a second just to make sure it makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, okay. Just, I mean, on Applet Tools, we have a bunch of stuff that we're building, but if we're out of time, I can skip that part.
Okay, and again, we're almost out of time. Same questions to you that I asked to Tracy. Is there anything you think we missed that you want to make sure is covered?
No, I think it would be nice to have more companies join this program. I think it's an awesome initiative by Tracy, and it's I'm seeing we have an engineering office in Tel Aviv, and I'm seeing how difficult it is for us to maintain some ratio and hire enough female to the team. So I think it's great to just increase the availability and teach more people and get more female to be qualified to tech jobs. So I think this is just one initiative. There are a bunch of others that other people are involved in, but I think it's just an important cause.
Cool. And what's your favorite text editor?
So I have to stick to VS Code also. I also love VS Code.
Yeah, VS Code is actually pretty cool for JavaScript, so it's really nice. And also, what's the other question? Oh, what's your favorite scripting language?
I guess Python, if I had to pick one. It's... Stab
me in my heart. Yes, there we go. It's okay. Not many people use Perl anymore, but that's okay. A lot of people used it back in the day, so that's perfectly fine. Well, Moshe, thank you for coming on the show and talking about you're part of this project, and thanks for doing everything you're doing for contributing back to open source. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for your time. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. That was, Moshe something or other. My son? It's off my screen now, darn it.
Milman.
Anyway.
Milman.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
I still have it up on my screen.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, you get old. It's the short-term memory problem. It goes in one ear and whoop out.
What did you just say? No. Anyway, so what do you think of the show?
It's great. No, this is a real. I kind of wish we almost had more time to talk about both projects separately, but it's great to have them on together. I feel like it was hard to get all the information in one episode, but at the same time, it's really nice to see the linkage between a successful company that's giving back to open source because they use open source and they value open source, and at the same time, they're helping great projects like getting more women into tech that are also working on open source and giving back to open source. So it's like, it's the community kind of feeding on itself or giving back to itself in multiple ways. And it shows you how you can multiply those efforts. You don't just have to give of your time or donate or give back to a single open source project. It can actually multiply if you start stacking that up with other things that are going on, in the world in which we live. So I think it's fantastic. I think everybody should check out both projects, take a look, and see what's going on. I think they're both very worthwhile.
Cool. Yes. Anyway, so this show is a little bit short because we got about a 20-minute delay in starting. Some combination of audio hijack, loopback, and Skype do not like each other on my laptop, so it causes my whole system to crash. I upgraded loopback about 3 weeks ago, and I have a feeling they broke something. So I can't use loopback anymore for this stuff. And the problem is I can't use loopback for some of the other things I use it for, like go on Second Life. But we'll see. Anyway, let's run down.
It's a great reason to tune in early, right? To watch the show live because there was also phantom music issues this morning. We were listening to 80s music and nobody knew where it was coming from. So you really should, if you have a chance to join live, you really should tune in and see some of the pre-show and the post-show and kind of get to see how the show works. It's a lot of fun.
Especially the pre-show where we try to figure out how to get audio to work right and how to get the lighting right, because everybody does it weirdly. I send out this nice long diatribe of everything that has failed in past shows, and people don't read it, and so they don't understand. You can't use little Bluetooth headphones, or you're lit from the back or whatever. It's really crazy. Anyway, added a few new guests this week, so I'm going to try to run down pretty fast. Open mainframe next week. That is going to be interesting. Open source software on mainframes. So I don't know whether that means they run faster or whether they run slower based on the current technologies, but we'll see. Weaviate open source knowledge graph. So it's basically a GraphQL RESTful API. That should be pretty fun. Practical Flutter. My buddy Hill is going to come back on. He's, I think, Oh, I was on his podcast, but I think he was also on one of Floss Weekly's podcasts. But anyway, he's a big player in the Flutter community. So he's going to talk about the state of Flutter as of recently. Things have been changing very rapidly. So he also does the podcast and the website, itsallwidgets.com, which is pretty fun. Go check that out. Hydra is a framework for elegantly configuring complex applications. Ooh. Deep Code alerts you about critical vulnerabilities you need to solve in your code. Ooh. Okay. Just added, and I didn't write a note for this, but I think I remember what he said. Linux Bierwanderung, which is a German word for basically a bunch of Linux guys basically doing pub crawl. So they go around and they chat about Linux things from pub to pub. So Bierwanderung is basically beer wandering. So it's a Linux, sort of a unconference conference that lets you see many pubs. Also just added to the schedule, NetData, which is a distributed real-time performance and health monitoring for systems and applications. It is a highly optimized monitoring agent you install on all your systems and containers. That's pretty fun. That's just added this week. XS Code, in fact, it was just added like 15 minutes ago. We got that all set up real quick. XS Code turns your open source project into a steady revenue stream. Boy, I wish. And Agonis is a host, run, and scale dedicated game servers on Kubernetes. We have a live show at twit.tv/floss. That's the homepage for the show. Live.twit.tv is where the show actually is. That's at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays, typically, although occasionally it changes. And it's at live.twit.tv. There's a chat room there that people post questions to. We had a few questions from there this week. You can follow us at Floss Weekly, yes, at Floss Weekly on Twitter. You can follow me at Merlin on Twitter. I needed more sleep last night. I really did. You can join us at the forum, twit.community. So that's pretty cool. And there's a Floss Weekly section specifically there. And I got to scroll, baby. Okay. And I'm also supposed to say, I will say, not just supposed to, it's time for Twit's annual audience survey, and we want to hear from you. It only takes 5 minutes. Please visit twit.to/survey20, number 20, and let us know what you think. There's no sign-up form, and we don't track you. Your feedback helps us make Twit even better, and thank you for your continued support. I have nothing to plug right now because I have no conferences I'm going to just yet. I'll probably be at OSCON coming up in July or August, whenever it is here in Portland, but I don't really have much of anything else yet. Probably ATO again, the conference we talked about with Tracy, All Things Open in Raleigh. I'll probably be there too, but I don't have anything really else going on. It's kind of strange. I usually have like a bunch of things I'm all working on. Oh, the Pro Conference coming up in like June, although I haven't actually applied there as speaker, but they always let me in. It's kind of easy that way. Anything you want to plug there, Aaron?
Yeah, likewise. I mean, there's not a lot going on. I think the first part of the year, conferences are over at the end of last year. So I don't have anything going on, I don't think, until like Google Next or Red Hat Summit, something like that in the spring. But something I haven't plugged in a while is Benicia Makerspace, which is the makerspace I founded here in my hometown. Right. We just got a new laser cutter, which is awesome. Nice. It's huge. It's got a huge bed. It's not new, right? It's a Chinese kind of knockoff laser cutter, but it actually does a pretty good job. So, if you're in the Bay Area, kind of the Northeast Bay Area, and you're looking for a makerspace or you want to do some work on a laser cutter, if you're a member, you can get access to that laser cutter. And we've got some other really nice tools. We've got a nice mill and a nice new lathe, not new, but new to us, nice lathe, which has digital readouts and all that kind of stuff. I don't even know how to use it, but it's big and it's cool and it's got lots of buttons. So if you're looking for a makerspace, you can always come on over and check us out. We have open houses the first Monday of every month. So come check out Benicia Makerspace.
Awesome. And Aaron, thanks once again for stepping in as the co-host. You always did an excellent job, and I'm happy that you were able to cover for me if I ended up having to not get my Skype working again. Appreciate that.
It was touch and go there for a minute.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, this has only started happening the last couple of weeks, and I think I updated Loopback a couple of weeks ago. And I think that's what's actually breaking it. I don't think it's Skype, because the way I'm doing Skype now is I'm not using Audio Hijack anymore. So I don't think it's Audio Hijack. I think it's Loopback, because that's the thing I upgraded. And that's the thing that allows me to route my mic down to a file I'm recording then from there up to Skype, and then from Skype back to the same file I'm recording, but on the other channel, left versus right channel. And we call that making a double ender, so that in case I lose connection, I can just send this file upstairs and they can just merge it with the stuff they recorded at the studio. So, so I'm not doing that right now. So we're just crossing our fingers, hoping nothing drops out otherwise. Because apparently, in order to make a backup file, I'm actually making a break. So that's not good. That's the wrong kind of backup. Wrong kind of backup. All right. Well, guys, we got to get going. I got to go start working on some stuff for Captain Neil. So we'll see you all again next week on FLOSS Weekly.